Since 1993, the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation has been dedicated to preventing Alzheimer's disease by funding research studies and educational programs on a brain-healthy lifestyle. As a nonprofit organization, our research and educational outreach activities are made possible by the generosity of private donors. It is our vision that the 4 Pillars of Prevention program can reduce the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease, and everyone can enjoy a lifetime of peak mental performance. To learn more, please visit our website at www.alzheimersprevention.org. For ongoing updates, you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Well, this will be the official beginning of our teleseminar tonight on the topic of yoga and depression, brought to you by your Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation, that I'll be calling ARPF for short. I want to thank our guest speaker, Rose Kress, who is the Director of Education for Life Force Yoga. Life Force Yoga was founded by my good friend Amy Weintraub, who's been dedicated to teaching yoga and yoga for depression and mood for a long time. She's a pioneer in this field, and Rose is her right-hand woman, I would say. She's been teaching since 1994, and she's a wonderful, wonderful person and very knowledgeable teacher. I want to thank everyone attending tonight, and I want to also thank all the supporters who gave a donation to the ARPF when registering. Our programs are free to everyone, and we appreciate the support. So without further ado, I want to talk for a moment about depression, because depression is, well, first of all, there are several types of depression, but women are most likely, about twice as much likely to suffer from depression than men. And about the latest numbers show about 43 million people in the U.S., adults, suffer from depression, of which 12 million are women. The definition of depression is that clinical depression is a mood disorder in which feelings of sadness, loss, anger, frustration, and I would say anxiety interfere with everyday life for weeks or more. So if you know someone, or you yourself have been experiencing these feelings for weeks at a time, then there's a good chance that you have or suffering from depression. Now, in terms of treatment, what we know, as I'm sure everyone here knows, the most common treatment for depression is antidepressants, which is a hugely utilized form of therapy, I guess, for this condition. And in some cases, even hospitalization, electroshock therapy, and all these kind of extreme treatments are utilized. What I read, I was I was shocked, but I wasn't that shocked, but that the federal government figured out that about 1 in every 10 Americans is taking an antidepressant. And antidepressants are the 3rd most common prescription medication taken by adults in the U.S. Also, what is interesting is that about 14% of all the people taking antidepressants are non-Hispanic white people, whereas the African Americans and Mexican Americans are just a very small portion, 3 and 4% respectively. So, very small portion. Mostly, it seems to be affecting, white people. So, what I want to say about today's program is that this is very important. We are. This is an educational program, and we're not advocating here for people to stay up, stop taking their medicines if they are taking it, or to not follow their doctor's advice. So we do recommend, if you do have depression, that you consult with your doctor. This is not replacing your doctor's medical advice. That's not our intention here, and I want to make sure that we're all, it's very clear. And especially in view of the fact that different types of depression call for different types of therapy. So what we have at the moment in terms of a lifestyle approach or holistic approach to depression, what is being advocated and utilized some is counseling, of course, relaxation techniques, behavioral activation, physical exercise, and techniques like yoga. That's where we come in. This actually fits very well with the 4 pillars of Alzheimer's prevention that we believe are an effective and are being studied and proven to be an effective tool to stay sharp as we age. And so diet, as I'm sure most of us know here, is extremely important if you suffer from depression. Stress management, that's what we'll be talking about. Exercise is also very important in, managing some of the symptoms of depression in some people. So also, just as a brief introduction here, I want to talk about why the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation wanted to talk about depression. And the reason is that depression seems to be one of the symptoms that goes hand in hand with memory loss or confusion. It's unclear from a clinical perspective whether depression can be a risk factor for memory loss, or if vice versa, people that suffer from memory loss may develop depression as a result of their memory loss, at least in the early stages. So because I'm sure we can all relate, if we don't feel well, it's easy to get depressed. If you can't remember things, or you're not as functional, it could lead to depression. So, but that's why we were interested in bringing this program to you today, because of the link. So I will now sort of have Rose tell us a little bit more about, or start telling us about, what is yoga and how does yoga impact or can impact depression.
Well, thank you, Kirti, so much for that introduction. Yoga is, as some people may be aware of, comes from a rich Indian tradition, and the way I was trained and the way we work with Life Force Yoga, yoga includes physical movements. It includes breath awareness or breathing practices. It includes sound practices, meditation practices, intention, lifestyle changes, or and I think time away from the world, sense withdrawal. And so yoga altogether, we're very used to seeing yoga as portrayed on television as postures, and how many commercials now, in car insurance commercials, yogurt commercials, you name it. And what I most often hear from people is, I can't do yoga, I'm not flexible. And to which I like to respond, well, that's good because I don't make pretzels. I'm in the business of making yoga accessible to people. So just because you can't put your foot behind your head, that is not the biggest part of yoga. There's all of these other practices that are not often taught that make up yoga. And so that's what we do. And somebody who can't even stand can still do yoga. Someone who can turn their head can still do yoga. And it's this practice that can go anywhere with anybody. I get on a plane next week. I will be doing yoga on the airplane in my seat. And I won't be standing on my head in the seat. I'll be doing breathing practices, and I'll be doing visualization and deep relaxation practices. So it's this really rich tradition that has made its way over into the U.S. and it's become rather popular in the U.S. Wherever you are, you may actually have a yoga studio within 20 minutes of your home, unless you're in the middle of nowhere. But you don't know. Someone could have a yoga studio in their home and be practicing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and then Life Force Yoga is, I'm part of Life Force Yoga. And Life Force Yoga, we focus on everything but the physical postures. So if you came to a Life Force Yoga workshop, we would be doing a lot of breathing, we'd be doing a lot of sound, and I know that the Alzheimer's Prevention and Research Foundation, hopefully I said that correctly, has done a lot of research on sound and sound's impact on the brain and impact on the mood. So we might be doing a lot of sound. We would do visualization techniques, setting intention, deep relaxation, meditation, all of these things to have an impact on the mood rather than, stand on your head, which will have an impact on your mood. Yoga is beautiful. We see across the board that there are numerous studies and anecdotes of people going to yoga and just doing physical movement. We know exercise improves the mood. We know that for a fact. And so some yoga, just posture, can have that impact. But I like to say what we do in Life Force Yoga fast tracks the effects of what doing a posture would do. So what a posture might do for you, if you held that posture for an hour, a breathing practice could do for you in less than 5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes.
Right, right. So, we have, I'm so excited, I don't even know where to start, but tell us, in your experience, you've been teaching this for a long time, and what is your experience teaching? You must see people who are depressed or have anxiety, and they come to your class, and it's their first class. And what happens?
Well, someone who comes in and a lot of people do not report that they're coming to a yoga class for dealing with depression or anxiety. As a yoga teacher, and some yoga teachers on the call might have this experience, I feel lucky when someone shares with me why they're actually coming to yoga. The Iyengar school conducted a research just to see what people were coming to yoga for, and the number 3 reason was depression. And the teacher that shared this information with me said, no one has ever told me they're coming to my class for depression.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So all of these, it's like, oh, I need to make a change, and maybe yoga will help me to feel better. And so it's often, I can see it in a body. I'm not jumping to a conclusion that person is depressed, but I can see, oh, there seems to be a lack of energy with that person, or they're not smiling, or they're not making eye contact with anybody, or they just seem real low energy and quiet in the corner, and maybe that's what they want to be. But through the process of a practice, sometimes it's one breath. The spine seems to lift, the corners of the mouth seem to lift. Sometimes there's tears, which is a beautiful thing. Because, when we're depressed or when we're anxious, we seem to have no access to our feelings and our emotions. We just feel like nothing's happening. I don't feel I don't feel overly sad, but I don't feel happy. I just feel like nothing. And in the doldrums, right? There's no wind on the ocean of any kind. And so seeing somebody lift the corners of their mouth in tears after a single breathing practice is a really special gift when I'm standing in the teacher's role.
Sure.
Or people who report after class, oh, I feel so much more relaxed. So it's quite a gift. And I saw a client today who tends to be a little more anxious, and he came for a session, and he got into the pose before we even started. He came in and he got into the pose that helps him feel calm, and he said, "Oh, I just love doing this pose with this breath because it helps me feel a little calmer, and now I feel like I'm landed and I can talk to you."
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and I love giving people tools for their toolbox. I'm constant. As we say in the business, I'm in the business of putting myself out of business.
Yes. Tell us, somebody who is not. I mean, you did mention this about breathing, but do you want to expand on people that may not be flexible?
Sure.
So how would that apply to them? So
people
would they need to sit on the mat? Would they, or people that are maybe a little older and they've never sat on the mat before, and we know that it's not an easy. Most people here, I'm sure, have had that experience. When you first start, it's not easy to sit on the floor. So.
Well, I like to say at the beginning of classes, especially when I have new people in class, that come into a position where the spine can be long. That might mean you're lying down on your back. That might mean that you're in a chair. That might mean you're seated. I sit cross-legged all day long. I sit cross-legged at my desk. I'm not supposed to sit cross-legged because it's not. I'm always sitting the same way, but just because I can sit cross-legged doesn't mean that I'm the face of yoga and we should all sit this way. Plenty of people, we go to, Life Force Yoga goes to yoga ashrams, and we're sitting amongst people who have been practicing yoga for decades and maybe half their life, and they sit in chairs to meditate because it's not comfortable for them to sit on the floor and practice. So chairs are a wonderful place to practice. I mentioned sitting on the airplane. As long as the spine can be long and open, then you're in a position where you can start to practice. And sometimes we are in such a body position that the spine is no longer long and open. So there's this posture of depression, and that it's that rounded back. And you see it the next time you get in your car. Look at the person next to you and look at the person on the other side, and you will likely see that posture. Or catch yourself the next time you're on your computer. Unless you're vigilant, you're going to be rounded and humped and slumped in your shoulders. And the yogis, the ancient yogis, said that depression was not enough life force energy moving through the body. And so when we constrict the chest in that way, then we don't get enough breath. We start under-breathing, and it dulls the mental faculties. And so we can't even be clear to focus on what we're doing. And everything in our Western world puts us into that body position. It's quite spectacular how often we're in that position. So something that's I'm an advocate of yoga in the bed, yoga in the car, yoga in the office. Forget about the yoga mat. Where else in the world can you do yoga for yourself? And so sometimes that means inviting clients to place a pillow behind their back when they're in bed in the morning, which that starts to open the chest a little bit And you don't have to get out of bed right away. If you're people who suffer from depression, what we call in yoga tamas, or deep lethargy, people that suffer from that lethargy, it's really hard to get out of bed in the morning. And there's no energy to get out of bed. But sometimes when we open the chest just a little bit, we're like, oh, I'm starting to wake up. And then we can do a practice in the bed. And if you'd like, I'd love to lead a little what we call stair-step breathing. So wherever you are, and you can adjust yourself so the spine is long. If you're in a position where you can come down onto the floor, this might be even nicer for you. And maybe even if you had something you could put behind your heart, like a little pillow or something, always taking care of the neck and the low back when we do that. No pain is a good thing. You can leave this call with the pain you came onto the call with, but please don't leave this call with more pain. That's not allowed. That's my big rule. No new pain. So we're going to imagine as though we're taking little steps up to the top of a mountain. So you're sniffing through the nostrils, and when you get to the top of the mountain, pause for just a moment and slide down the mountain. Again, little steps up through the nostrils, climbing your way to the top of a mountain, and this time see something that lights you up inside, and slide down the mountain. This time we'll take a trolley ride to the top of the mountain. And when you get to the top of the mountain, again, pause and see something that maybe makes your heart smile. And then little steps down through the nostrils. Excellent. Let's do one more like that, taking your trolley ride up to the very top of the mountain, pausing at the top, stepping out and seeing that image that makes your corners of your mouth lift, and little steps down. And this time, little steps up. And again, when you get to the top, see something that brings a little peace into your heart. And little steps down. And we'll do one more like that. Little steps up. And again, when you get to the top, see something that melts your heart open. And little steps down. And this time, we'll take little steps up. And again, pausing at the top of your mountain. Here I am, ready. And slide down the mountain. And allow the breath to return to normal. And we'll imagine the inhale moving through the feet to the crown of the head. And the exhale moves from the crown of the head to the feet. Inhale to the crown of the head, I am. Exhale to the soles of the feet, here. Inhale to the crown, I am. Exhale to the soles of the feet, here. Take 2 more breaths just like that. And when you complete, you can allow the eyes to open if they've closed, adjusting the position, coming back. So Kirti, since I know you are unmuted, Would you care to share how that felt for you?
Well, I found it really easy, and just I feel lighter. Yes, I feel
easy
lighter.
Easy and lighter. Those are two, wow, I love those words. Easy.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and what we did, and this is, it has its basis in Anuloma Viloma and Anuloma Krama, are the techniques that it's called in Sanskrit. But this makes it, we call it stair-step breath. It makes it a little more accessible. And what we started off with was a practice that the little steps in, it meets that inability to take a deep breath. Because if I were to say to you, if you're anxious or you're depressed, or maybe you have no breath awareness, if I said take a deep breath, you might not be able to do that. And as a yoga teacher, I'm setting you up to fail by saying, take a deep breath. And, somebody that comes to yoga and leaves yoga feeling like this is not something I can do or I don't belong here, like I could cry just thinking that.
Yes, of course.
Right now I could cry thinking that. So something like stair-step meets that inability to take that deep breath. And you'll notice I didn't really use the word breath a lot, because sometimes even saying the word breath can, I can't do that. That's a breathing exercise. I can't do that. That doesn't work for me, or I don't want to take a deep breath. So we start with those little stair steps up, which meet that inability to breathe, and then the long, slow exhale, the sliding down the mountain, starts to awaken the breath. When we get to the trolley ride up the mountain, we're starting to find a little deeper breath. And the little stair steps down, that's activating, that's gently awakening. Those of you that have practiced some deeper yoga breathing practices may recognize that snapping of the belly that's required to puff the breath out in steps. And then the most energizing portion of that practice is the little steps up and the little steps down. And then we end with the little steps up and sliding the breath down as a means of balancing the breathing. And then I led you through that practice of affirmation, the I am here, breathing through the body, as a means of grounding and balancing what we just did. So I love that practice, and whenever in Life Force Yoga, that's one of the first practices we do with people. And yoga teachers are trained somebody's not breathing, get them breathing. Get them on their back, get them taking deep breaths. But again, if you can't take a deep breath, being asked to take a deep breath is a little frustrating.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. So I want to take a deep breath. I can't take one. So stair-step breath is just this easy doorway in. It's perfect practice for, when you're lying in bed in the morning and you can't get up. What was that practice? Oh, that's right. I climbed a mountain. I slid down a mountain. I rode up a mountain. That kind of practice. And it helps with anxiety when we're in a panic attack kind of mode. We're also taking, right? The panic attack takes those really short sips of breath. So it can help.
My goodness.
It can help with that. Sound is a little better for someone in a panic attack. But in a anxious mode, just subtle anxiety, because I'm sure there are people who have anxiety. As one of our practitioners, Ricky Simpson, says, sometimes we have our foot on the gas and the brake pedal at the same time. And that's exhausting. So a practice like that can help when you've got your foot on the gas and the brake at the same time. Yeah.
Well, that's I really enjoyed it. I was wondering if you could tell us how does the Eastern philosophy of yoga intersect with Western medicine as far as depression is concerned. And also I'd like to ask whoever hasn't muted themselves, we are hearing quite a bit of background noise on your end, so if you would please press *1, we would appreciate it so we can all hear better. So go ahead, Rose.
Right. So Eastern philosophy of yoga intersecting with Western medicine, that is a huge topic, but we'll try and whittle it down to something small and simple. So yoga really is a complementary alternative medicine in treatment for depression and anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, et cetera, et cetera. So as Kirti has already said, and I would love to repeat it, that if you're already working with a mental health professional and taking medication, it is not appropriate to stop taking that medication. We bless that pill because that pill is what gets you to the yoga mat. So yoga is finding its way as a technique into psychiatric centers, into treatment centers, addiction treatment centers, hospitals, cancer
Jim, the plan
treatment
is still
centers.
to try to stop him from getting 1,257.
Oh my goodness.
And
sorry.
we're driving and listening to yoga. So yoga, we really want yoga to be complementary and in addition to what you are already doing as a treatment. And Eastern philosophy sees us as whole, that we're already whole, we're already complete as we are. And sometimes Western medicine, it depends on who you're seeing in Western medicine. That's not always the approach, but again, it depends on who you're seeing, because I know therapists, many therapists, who see the individual as whole and trying to uncover the wholeness that is within. And so yoga really views depression, anxiety, these things as blockages. And I would say in many ways that Western medicine views it as the same way. It's just a different language and a different viewpoint. So yoga can come at it from the spiritual end of things. Yoga can come at it from the physiological end of things. It depends on your perspective. And I don't want to represent the Eastern philosophy. Being a white American woman, I do not proclaim to be representative of Eastern philosophy, but that is my understanding. And we all have different lenses of how we view the world. And so yoga is now being studied more and more and more, and International Association of Yoga Therapists, or IAYT.org, they have a compendium of yoga research that includes some yoga research on the mood, but yoga research on many other things. We know someone, her name is Patricia Kinzer, and she did a study. It was published in 2014, where they were using mind-body interventions for people with a major depressive disorder. Mm-hmm. And it was a small population of people, and they had a control group, and they also had a group that had an 8-week intervention of yoga. So they had yoga, I believe it was 1 class a week, although I could be wrong. And then that group that had the 8-week intervention was also given the Life Force Yoga DVD to take home and practice. Now, they followed up with this group a year later, with the whole group a year later, and that control group, they reported that they had a reoccurrence of symptoms. And the 8-week yoga intervention group reported that they had continued mood improvement even without practice, and that they said, well, yoga, this is now a tool that I have in my toolbox. Mm-hmm. And so this whole empowerment issue of, taking a pill again, and you bless it. I had to take medication at one point in my life for a depressive episode, and I'm so grateful I had that opportunity to take that pill because it made me normal again. I was able to talk to people and function like I had been before. I can't imagine if I had tried to do it without medication, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere. And so yoga is this tool that can help. My therapist gave me a visualization technique, and I didn't even, I was like, okay, this is what you do in psychotherapy. I had no idea. She just said, let's do this visualization technique, and I used it quite a bit in that period of my life. In fact, I still use it because it was a nice image. So 20 years later, I'm still using an image that a therapist gave me in an office, and whether or not she was using yoga tools, I don't know. But it's the only thing I can remember about those sessions with that therapist is the image. I don't even remember her name.
Wow.
Yeah, so these things can be these small things can be so powerful in changing the mood. It's and in a medical office, they have even more power as opposed to, a doctor cannot teach you yoga poses because maybe the doctor doesn't know yoga poses or they may not be licensed to do yoga. Some MDs are becoming yoga teachers. I know a couple of MDs that are yoga teachers and will include it, but a nurse practitioner or a doctor could teach me one breathing practice that takes 3 minutes, and it could change my life. And so that's where we really see the intersection of yoga and Western medicine is in the offices, in patient care settings, inpatient settings, outpatient settings, you name it, yoga can go there, especially yoga that requires no mat.
Yes, absolutely. Well, this is really exciting, and I wonder if there's anyone here who would like to ask a question. Would this be a good time, Rose?
Yes. Oh, yes.
That would be great. So, so if you do have a question, you can unmute yourself by pressing *1. This is your time. And then please mute yourself back after you ask the question because we still have some background noise and we're just trying to make it so that we can all hear better. Please, who is this?
My name is Mary.
Okay, one of them.
My name is Mary, and I have a question for Rose. Do you have CDs that you sell?
Oh, yes, Mary, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mary, thank you for asking that question. If you go to yogafordepression.com, that's yoga, F-O-R, the word, not the letter, depression.com, you will find a huge amount of resources. We have CDs. One includes the breathing practice that I did with you. That would be the Bhavana CD, which also includes visualization, which we did a little bit of. There's a relaxation CD, a breathing CD, a meditation CD. There's
are they CDs that show pictures or just verbal?
They're verbal. The meditation.
You don't have any that show pictures?
Well, the DVD has images. It's a yoga practice. Now, the other thing that we have on the website, and I would encourage everybody on the call to go and take a look at, it's called Free Mood Management Practices, or Free Practices. Free Practices for Mood Management. The website is yogafordepression.com.
Okay.
And there are many practices on there. On the mood management section, there's some videos that you can follow along with. Some are to read, and some have pictures in them. And the practices that are in the video are 2-3 minutes long at most because, again, sometimes that's all it takes. Now, there are also 2 books, Yoga for Depression by Amy Weintraub and Yoga Skills for Therapists, and those do have pictures in
I didn't
them.
get the author's name. Something blurped in the middle of that.
Amy Weintraub.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's the founder of this organization, so all the material there will be by Amy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Thank
I'm
you,
done.
Mary. And
Thank you.
who else was there that had a question, please?
My name's Graham.
Graham, please.
Yeah, I'm in Vancouver, so so yeah, I don't have the access to people like who are yoga experts on like depression.
We have a great teacher. Her name is Ocean Lum, Lum, and she is in Vancouver. And
Would you say that name again?
Her name is Ocean, like the ocean where whales and fish swim, and her last name is Lum, Lum.
Lum.
And for anybody else who's thinking, oh, this could really help me, and I'd like to work with an individual and go to classes, on the website as well, we have a listing of everybody who has studied with us and taken our programs. And so they can be found. When you go to the website, there's a menu bar, and it says Get Help at the top. And so underneath Get Help, you can find a practitioner. You can find free practices for mood management. You can find the books, the videos, the DVD, or the CDs.
CDs,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Videos and DVDs are the same thing. So all of that is on the website. And I know Ocean, she just taught a number of things and was even on TV in the Vancouver area.
Oh, wonderful. Cause
yeah.
I don't know anybody in Canada, period, because like all of this is happening in America, not Canada.
Oh no, we have, yes, they have a lot of teachers. I've even met some, that are from Canada. So yes, please check their website, and you'll be able to find some referrals.
Yes,
that's good, because they say, I don't know, time and again they say if you're working with a DVD or a CD, like it's fine working on your own, but you really need to work with a yoga teacher as well.
Yes, and
so,
it's the
so
relationship.
Now I can do that.
Yeah.
So now I can do that because just working with a DV all the time doesn't really work.
Yes, and
anyway,
I don't.
Thank you.
Yes, and
thank you, Graham. Thank you. Is there anyone else that has a question for Rose?
I'll ask one. Kirti, it's Stacy in San Francisco.
Oh, Stacy, wonderful to
How
have
are you?
Great.
Yeah, great information. Thank you both for the conference
call.
I have a question in general, and sorry if you said it before, but basically doing yoga, breathing exercise, meditation, all of the yoga techniques and posture. Have they done studies, is that any better for relieving depression than just general exercise effect? Or is the reason, I know you said before the breathing is kind of quicker effect for depression, but if people are just exercising out of curiosity, is that generally just as effective via research as all the yoga meditation as well?
Well, there's some research to suggest that yoga is better than exercise, and the research that's coming to mind right now, I'm not sitting in front of a computer, was done by Streeter. I believe the first name is Chris, and it compared yoga to walking, just plain walking, and its effects on GABA levels. And there may be somebody that could better define what GABA levels are. But GABA levels, when GABA is inhibited, we are more likely to have, it's a neurotransmitter or neurotransmitter inhibitor. It's something in the brain, and when we have more of it, we tend to have, our moods are improved. When we have less of it, we may have depression or anxiety. And so they compared walking to yoga, and they found that yoga actually had more of an impact on these GABA levels than walking did. So it seems that there's something going on, and I love this because I hear it again and again, and I read it again and again. There's something different about yoga, but what is it? Right? It may be it's the breathing and the movement combined. It may be the attention to detail, attention to the body. It may be how you're using your brain to move your body. Somebody on the call mentioned they did Dawn Yoga, and I did Dawn Yoga once, and I thought, oh, this is so cool. It's changing my brain waves. And so something about that as a whole practice. And the cool thing about it is they're having a really hard time studying yoga because it's hard to pull out one piece of the practice to study it by itself when we talk about yoga, because people think yoga is the movement and the breath and all of that together. Of course, you can study breathing practices, and there are a lot of studies, research going on around the breath and yoga studies in general. Shirley Telles, Telles, does amazing studies. I think she has over 200 published studies on yoga, and she's based in India and is a world-renowned yoga researcher. So she's pretty cool. You can find a lot of research online by just Googling, well, is yoga better than exercise? And I'm sure there will be more research pieces than I could pull out of my brain.
Yeah, I just saw this on your website, this one article called Yoga Improves Mental Functioning Better Than Aerobic Exercise.
Oh, fantastic.
This is from June 2013. It's a relatively new study, and so it's all important information because we do need the physical exercise because we need to stay fit for many reasons. Of course, we need to keep our blood sugars and our cholesterol, and we need to keep our muscle tone as we get older. We don't want to be inactive. Moving and physical exercise also improves your balance, and so for many different reasons we want to definitely have physical exercise, but yoga has that special benefit of bringing you a step further, if you will.
That's my question. So it would be great if people are going through depression, if they're exercising, if they can healthy to do it out in the fresh air, and meditating, they'll get the mental and physical, but there's something about the yoga asana postures that they're studying that, even if they don't know exactly why, but there's something about that that's helping even more so probably. Is that kind of the idea?
Yes. I mean, the ideal practice would be to grab your yoga mat and walk to your yoga class, do your yoga practice, and then walk home or ride your bike. I live in Tucson, and so I see we are a big biking community in this southern Arizona, and I see people bicycling to yoga, and I know because I see yoga mats on their back all the time, and I think how wonderful, how beautiful if you live close to a yoga studio that you can walk to, or parking, maybe just, I'm going to go to a yoga class tomorrow, and I'm going to park 5 blocks away from the yoga studio, and I'm going to walk to those 5 blocks so I get a little exercise. I'm a huge proponent of walking. It does so much for the body.
But even if you're walking with depression, it's ideal to do something about the asana postures.
Yes.
Changing maybe the hormones, the chemicals, something different.
Yeah, the movements, and even more than that, doing the breathing practices.
Okay. Yeah.
And the meditation, there's a lot of research, and Meditation as Medicine is a fantastic book, but there's research that shows that depression, long-term depression, shrinks the part of the brain, and meditation brings that part of the brain back. So all of it combined, if you can find a class that incorporates the movement, has breathing practices in it, and has meditative practices in it, that's the perfect class.
Mm-hmm. Which is basically any lineage ashram-based yoga.
A lot of them,
yeah. Yeah, most of them, yeah.
Yoga at your gym, maybe not so much.
Right.
which is not to. I met Amy Weintraub in a gym, so I'm not opposed to yoga at a gym, but I do know people teaching at gyms that are told, only do the poses, don't have them sitting, and, it depends on the gym and the rules of the gym as to how complete of a yoga practice you may be getting.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you for
you.
your question, Stacy.
Thank
I
you.
think Graham again.
Graham, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to say something very short. Like for years, I was buying books, like that book, Yoga for Depression.
Mm-hmm.
What's her name? I think Annie.
That's Amy Weintraub.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I bought that book about 10 years ago when it first came out.
Oh.
But it didn't, and now it's only in the last 3 years that people say, okay, depression is mild to moderate, and that's what they're talking about. It seems to be most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get into clinical and into major depression, there's very little that is written about that. Because you need, like you say, psychiatry and you need medication. And in my case, I needed electric shock therapy.
Mm.
And
oh my goodness.
so it's only in the last year that I have discovered that more of the mind trauma specialists.
Mm-hmm.
And so through yoga, I didn't feel my body.
Yeah.
I had no feelings. My body was numb. And I was living from the neck up.
Mm.
So I have a book that I discovered this year by, I don't know, maybe I'll just mention it to you. It's The Body Keeps the Score.
Oh,
Brain,
yes,
mind,
by Bessel van der Kolk.
Yeah. So brain, mind, and body in healing of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he devotes a whole chapter on learning to inhabit your body. So
Yeah.
that's
wow.
me.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
learning to inhabit your body, yoga.
Yeah. Graham, thank you so much for sharing your experience, because I know that you're not alone in that experience of living from the neck up and your body feeling numb, and also being an individual that, is having this experience of, well, I'm not just having a minor depression, I'm having severe issues, and how come there are no resources out there for me? And Bessel van der Kolk, and sadly, a lot of what's been going on with PTSD and vets returning, that's done a lot to amp up the resources that are available. And Yoga for Depression was the first book of that kind. There was no book out there like that beforehand. And that, it can be difficult when you're coming from, as a yoga teacher, I have to say things like, well, this may have an impact. This, as we mentioned, this is stress relief. We have to speak a specific way, because I cannot say to you, oh, well, if you do this, you're going to feel better, because it might not be true. I might get lucky and it might be true for you, but what if it's not? And that causes a problem for, and it hurts you instead. And, so there's the whole liability issue. But there's also, the foundations that we have in Yoga for Depression as a book and on the website are this meeting the mood that's arising. And we don't really have time to go into great depths of meeting the mood, but meeting the mood is working with the person that's in front of you, or the person that the symptom that you're feeling at the moment, rather than trying to tackle this massive disorder that may be present. So working with a schizophrenic, I might just be working with, oh, we need to move the body today, or oh, let's invite the breath to deepen. And over time, yoga is is cumulative, but it is something you have to build up in your system. So that repeated practice, which is, of course, very difficult when you have attention issues and depression or anxiety, right? It's really hard to get to the mat every single day when those issues are present. So finding that support system is going to make a huge difference.
Yeah, because I've also noted my psychiatrist is more from the chemical side. So when I say I don't inhabit my body, I'm numb and I don't have feelings, it doesn't really connect.
Yeah.
People don't really know, and they don't know about yoga. So,
yeah,
I mean, there it is. This Basil van der Valk has 30 years of experience in like serious trauma, and he's a whole chapter learning to inhabit your body, yoga, which like blew me away, and you must know Stephen Cope.
Yes.
So, Graham, thank you so much for sharing about this book. I want to be mindful that it's past the hour, and I know that, on the East Coast is 9 o'clock at night, and so we want to maybe continue this conversation, via email. Anybody who would like to stay in touch with Rose, you can email us at info@alzheimersprevention.org, and we'll send the questions and your comments to Rose, and we'll get back to you. In the meantime, I want to thank again Rose for your wonderful knowledge and the kindness and information that you brought to the call today. We're very grateful, and thank you to everyone participating. And I won't hold anybody else, but Rose, would you like to say goodbye?
I want to say thank you to you and to the Alzheimer's the Research Foundation for having me on the call, and to everybody who shared your valuable time listening to me talk at you. I hope you found some useful information, and I hope that we see each other on the path at some point in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Rose. Have a wonderful evening. And stay tuned for more wonderful and interesting and useful teleseminars here from your ARPF. Have a good night, everyone.